In the webinar that you're about to watch, myself, Kevin Andrews, and one of our client success managers, Paul Karlik, talk all about how to use video to solve complexity. Now, some of that is talking about technical components, our screen recorder, giving visual cues and visual elements to a video. The other part of it is how do we perform? Are we conveying the right information, giving the right cues to the people to really use the elements that video provides to our benefit? Take a look. Well, good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday, February 19th. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. Did you get to show a little love, feel a little love from somebody around you? I hope it was wonderful. It was kind of weird being on a Friday. I don't know why. I feel like for some reason Valentine's Day always feels like it's on a Tuesday or a Wednesday for
Yep.
some reason. Whatever, I don't know. But my wife and I got to have a little time away, had a chill Valentine, so it was good. So happy February, everybody. We're gonna spend a minute or two here just doing some of the QA stuff, just doing the housekeeping stuff, getting everybody in here. We've got an awesome crew here. I'm going to introduce everybody in just a minute, but if you're here with us, jump in chat. One of our biggest things, you can see chat's already, we already got people going. Steve's one of them, of course, because Steve's the chat rock star. But jump in there. Let us know where you're joining us from. We know a huge part of these webinars is allowing you all to talk to each other, building the community that BombBomb has, because you guys bring a lot of knowledge that we learn from as well. So I always love these because yes, we're going to talk through stuff, we're going to give you information, but guess what? We also want you to convey information to each other and bring and help each other out in that way. So use chat as a great way to talk with each other and communicate. And also, Paul and I were talking about this a second ago. How you guys doing with the weather? I know weather's like that topic. Like, don't talk about weather and traffic, but let's be real. It's getting great. Paul, you were talking about your family on the East Coast. They're like locked down right now,
Yeah,
right?
well,
Like they
so
can't
I
get.
mean, my family on the East Coast, when the storm hit, they lost power for a little bit. But then I would say like us here, it's been freezing. It's been like 1 degrees here in like Kansas City, so it's been intense.
Internally here at BombBomb, we've all been complaining about how cold it is, and then we have one guy that works up in Canada. I think he's up in Toronto, and he's like, "Guys, the high today is like -8."
Yeah.
He
No
won.
one else
He won.
commented after that.
Yeah, I'll let you have that one all day. So
Oh,
use
Honolulu.
use
Wow.
chat. Yeah, Mary, you can rub it in that you're in Honolulu in a delightful place. If you've got a specific question, Q&A. I know a lot of people are familiar with these things, but we just like to touch on them. If you've got a question you do not want us to miss, throw QA in there. You can see we've got the amazing Steve LeBaron, Steve BombBomb, who is helping us out as well. And Steve actually has worked on support for a long time. He's just moving over to a CSM role, who's managing our teams. I mean, there is nobody here that knows more than Steve about BombBomb. I'm convinced he's kind of the top dog. So we've also got the amazing Taylor Brock, who is one of our support specialists. If you put a ticket into BombBomb and have questions, she's the one for you. She will be one of the people that's answering those questions. So they're going to be watching QA, they're going to be watching chat, answering all the questions that you've got going on because chat gets going a little bit crazy. So the other thing that I always like to touch on, and I know we'll get this question as well, recording. We are absolutely recording this. In fact, I'm just going to double check just to make sure. Yep, because I have forgotten before. We will send the recording to you in a couple of days. We also always put our recordings on bombbomb.com/webinars. You can look at what's upcoming and sign up for that. You can also look back at past recorded webinars. So if you want to go to our YouTube page, go to bombbomb.com/webinars, or we will send you a follow-up email with this recording if you have to leave earlier, if you miss something. We go through a lot of great stuff. So if you miss something, that's totally fine. Just wanted to give you a heads up on that. With that, I'm excited to introduce you guys to Paul Karlik. Paul and I have been working together at BombBomb for 8 years,
Yeah, a
seven and a
little
half
over. Yeah,
years.
no, a little over 8.
Long time. I was actually just talking with somebody, and it feels like at a SaaS company, you used kind of dog years. So basically, Paul and I have been here for a long time. And Steve, us combined, we're at like 25 years of BombBomb experience. But Paul has been on the sales side, has been on the support team, has been on the CS side. He's worked kind of the full gamut of things. And holy cow, he's recorded and sent a lot of videos. So let me introduce you, Paul. First off, thanks for being here, man. We're so
Happy to
excited
be
to get
here.
you here.
Yeah.
Give us a little intro. I know I kind of just teased you up a little bit, but give us a little intro about kind of your experience with video. Let us know a little bit more about you.
Yeah. So thanks, Kevin. And as he said, I've been at BombBomb for 8 years. I've done many roles, and I will say communication, video is what I love. And so what always started me off with video is I always have this core belief like I love connecting with people and I love getting in front of people. And if I could get in front of people, then that's where like magic, that's where business happens, that's where relationships are built. And so I've been an advocate of that for the last 8 years. So I'm living my dream here and I'm really excited to share some insights of what I've learned. Another thing is I've managed companies and accounts that use our product. And so I've seen successful strategies, ways to incorporate this into workflows. And so it's what I do, it's what I love. But my real why is my family. I got three beautiful kids and an awesome wife, and so I've been luckily married for almost 14 years. So this is I am truly blessed, and so but I'm happy to be here.
And Sarah's a gem. The fact that she's
Yeah.
made it for 14 years with you, Paul, she's she's the gem. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen, and we're just gonna start talking through stuff because I know nobody likes to sit in a webinar and hear us talk about ourselves for 25 minutes at the beginning, right? So let's start talking about what's gonna be beneficial for you all. Obviously, you signed up. Complex products, complex solutions. I think that is one of the beautiful things that maybe we don't talk about enough that video helps solve is complexity, is confusion. Paul, you were talking about connection, right? When you're face to face with somebody, you get to absorb so much information. And we're going to talk about how video can kind of be the conduit for that. Here's how we're going to tackle this today. So we're going to talk about a little bit. I like to set a baseline for our conversation just to understand so we're kind of all on the same page. Why do text why does text fail when we're just using black and white text? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to sit here and say never send a text email ever again. There's a lot of times when it's like a little bit of information, a little bit of context, boom, I can send that off and type it. However, there's a lot of things that we miss when we're using text and how video helps with that. So we're going to talk about a little bit of the psychology, the science behind that. Then we're going to dive a little bit deeper into some best practices that you can use when you are sending video. I think one of the things that I tend to lose sight on is cool, I'm using video. They must be getting all of the things that I want to get across. Well, no, I could still not be conveying those in the right way, and they're not going to be getting those. Just because I'm using a video, it's not this magic bullet that solves everything. So let's talk through some stuff. And holy cow, I have learned a ton of new stuff for this webinar that I'm really excited to convey with you guys. And then we're going to give you 4 times that video will solve these complexities and how you can use these to give you some really specific ideas and ways that you can start thinking about, oh, this is how I can start using it in your business right now to solve some of these pieces. And then we've got some great next steps for you. So pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Let's dive in. So I love this quote. I found this as I was researching for a lot of this, and I think, holy cow, is there a better example of how there can be confusion with text? It's this quote from Robert McCloskey. He's actually a writer illustrator. He writes kids books and has written like 10 or 15 of them. But read this in your brain. And it took me like 5 times to read this sentence to go like, oh yeah, that really does make sense. But I know that you believe you understand what you think I said, but I'm not sure you realize that what you heard is not what I meant.
Yes.
Like, just, I mean, that sentence actually is logical and totally makes sense. But holy cow, is that not a perfect example of just reading text and seeing that and you going, oh yeah, you typed that, it made sense. And me going, wow, I could convey this or read this or take this a totally different direction than what it entails. And that in a nutshell is sort of why text fails a little bit, is that we can type anything, but without all of the other pieces of communication, when it's just the words that we're writing out, it can be really, really confusing. I want to talk for a second about this. And I do want to give a little bit of an asterisk to these numbers. So I'm putting these up there. I'm sure a lot of you have heard these over the years. 55, 38, 7. This is a study that was done back in the 60s by Albert Mohrabian. He's a doctor. And he was trying to understand how much of communication is actually the words that are coming out, how much of it are other cues and other things that we're conveying. Now, this has been used and misconstrued, I think, a lot over the years. It's that stat, if you've ever heard it, that 93% of communication is nonverbal. This is the study that comes from, right? And these numbers that you're seeing is 55% of communication is body language. That's what he found. 38% is tone of voice, and 7% is the actual words spoken. Now, what a lot of us have missed in this, as I was researching it more and more, is that he goes, this is actually for a very specific piece of communication. This is when we're trying to communicate feelings and attitudes. This is not necessarily, I'm just trying to give you a piece of information. And I think a lot of people just use this, put it in a bucket, and use it to prove their point. I do think there is obviously value to it. It was a scientific study that was done, but we also have to understand that was a good 50 years ago. So there is a lot that's changed since then. But I think it's a great way to just convey, you know what? there's a lot going on other than just the words that are coming out. Is it 93%? I don't know. I personally don't think it's quite that high, but it's something that somebody kind of came up with. So I just want to throw that out there as yes, when we are trying to convey feelings, emotions, attitude, any of those type of things, a huge percentage of that, a large factor of that is not just the words that are going out. Paul, you kind of mentioned this that like when I get in front of people,
Yes.
that's really when I shine. Do you think this is part of what that is, a part of how that plays together?
I mean, it definitely plays into it. I mean, because it's also it's like there's so many different things that go into how we communicate or how we even receive information. And then I'm even thinking about like the text based message that we have. In order to actually understand the message that they're doing and how they want it to be received, you have to have a relationship with them. My dad does the okay period. And I panicked at that. I'm like, why are you mad at me? But I'm like, no, I know my dad. He does the period, and that's just him. So I don't take that offensively. If I don't know you, I'm telling you, I'm taking it offensively. You're mad at me. I don't know how to handle it, you know?
That's a perfect example. Or the all caps, right? Like, why are
Yes.
you yelling at me? And it was funny. My wife actually ran a company, and she had some. I'm not grouping generations together, but she had some Gen Z people working for her. And this one girl would use all caps and like 15 exclamation points every single email she sent. And she's like, hey, I love the excitement. We got to tone this down a little. We don't know how they're going to be feeling these kind of things, right? So those simple written, typed out things feel very nonchalant without the context of the relationship. It can be missed, right? Here's a perfect example of this. This is actually an email that, I have the kind of picture of it. If your eyes are good enough to read that, great. If not, I typed it for you on the side. But this is just a mortgage email this is actually an email that I've received from a mortgage banker as well. And so you can kind of read through that. What I think is so fascinating when you're just reading these words is we're all probably picturing a different Brett Allen in this. We all have very different understanding of who might this person be. In fact, for me, when I was reading through this, I'm hearing like, oh, you've been in 23 years, you've helped thousands of clients. Oh, you just won lender of the year. And I immediately start going, oh, this is somebody that just kind of wants to brag about how good they are. That's the assumptions I made. And for good or not, we make those initial assumptions in the first 7 seconds you meet somebody, you read something about someone. What I think is so fascinating is I'm an emotional person. I will not shy away from that. Anybody that's been here knows me. That's just how I roll. Um, I make emotional choices. And so when I think about explaining context, there's those stats that we talked about. There's also the emotional side of seeing the text versus the video. Watch this video because it is the exact same language as I just typed out. And I want you to notice how different this comes across, how much more you get about Brett Allen. And throw in chat if this is even close to what you expected when you were kind of reading that email.
My name is Brett Allen. I'm a mortgage loan officer here at NBKC Bank. I wanted to send you a short video to introduce myself and thank you for the opportunity to help you with the home loan that you've inquired about. To give you a little background on myself, I began as a mortgage lender 23 years ago. I've helped thousands of clients throughout the U.S., as a matter of fact, in all 50 states over those years with their home loan purchase needs.
Okay, Paul, you've probably seen this video before because I know we've used this example. But when you were reading that, I mean, is this at all what you were picturing? And if
No,
it is, that's fine too. I
no,
think
and it's actually something I struggle with, like how you have to like try to give credibility to your words, right? So, but it's like when it's typed out, when he's talking about his 23 years of experience, it's like, okay, this guy thinks he's really awesome. And then you just hear or you see like the humility and his kindness, and he's like, no, like I've been doing this a long time. I would love the opportunity to help you. Like that is all the things I'm picking up on just because of his body language and his tone.
Okay, so this is great because I think I leaned a little bit more to your side. There's some people inside saying, yeah, that seems to line up with his text pretty well. Like, great, that's awesome. I think when you see him, not only do you get his warmth, and do you get what I think comes across as humility when he's saying those words, versus when I read them, it felt almost braggadocious in a way.
Yes. Yeah.
I think what's also fascinating about this is you get a lot more context as to who he is because you see his family behind him, you see his baseball hats, you see all these other things that you can pick up from his environment that give you ideas of them. For those of you that are emotional decision makers, this is what landed for me. This was my first aha moment when I joined Bomb Moms forever ago. It was like, oh my gosh, yeah. I get it. Like I see so much more about him. So what we want to do is we want to start talking you through how you can use this and how we can use it, especially with these complex topics that we're talking about today. The one other thing I want to touch about as to why I think video is really impactful from a complex perspective and why words fail is these three words right here. They may trigger, you may understand those and recognize those. These are learning styles. These are the three standard learning styles. Now, does that mean everybody's in these boxes? No, there's always complexities and there's gray. There's no black and white in anything with humans, right? But these are the three standards. A lot of people are going to learn auditory, visual, or kinesthetic. Now, if you've never heard these, kinesthetic is I learn by doing. That is me 100%. I like to get my hands in using stuff, but I'm also very, very visual. And Paul, you brought this up when we were talking about this. We had worked with a sales trainer years ago who talked about how we can kind of learn this about people. What were some of the things you brought up when we were kind of prepping for this as far as how you can tell how somebody learns or how you can kind of learn that about yourself?
Yeah, you can pick up on some of the language, or even if you don't know where you fall into, you can actually just pay attention to how we talk. I'm someone who's like, you see what I mean? Like, do you see what I'm saying? And that's because I'm a visual person, right? Or it's like, oh, I hear you. I hear you. Like, I'm an audit, like that could be your flow. Or even some people are more feelers, like Kevin was saying, like, hey, isn't it just in these? Like, somebody's like, no, I feel you. Like, I understand what you're trying to get across. But just these types of phrases that we even use actually show us who we are and who others are based on just how we visualize or how we communicate or how we hear things.
So this is interesting as you're talking with people, start to understand what words they use because it will convey how you can communicate with them really effectively. It's also interesting for yourself. If you're not sure how you process and how you learn, one of the things I learned is you're probably noticing it now, as I'm thinking, I will look for my words. I will actually like look up to a corner or I'm looking around as I'm processing because that's what my brain does. It wants to see that visually. I know some people that as they're sitting and really focusing, you'll notice they cock their head to the side a little bit like this. They're still looking at you. It's because they want their ear closer. They're trying to really hear intently because they're auditory learners, right? Another a thing that I learned as I was kind of researching this more and more, if you're somebody that when you're really focused, you tap your leg or you find yourself tapping your fingers and things, you're kinesthetic. You want to touch stuff. You need to be moving. In fact, they say with little boys, like I don't know what age this ends. If little boys aren't moving, they're not learning. Just because there's so much going on in their bodies and things. So it's just an interesting thing. The beauty of video is it gives them a lot of these things. Now, can we make them do it with us? No, but I'll tell you what. There's stats about the percentages of people that are learning new things from watching instructional videos. I've literally taken my car engine apart. I am not a mechanic. I have no business doing that. But I was like, oh, yeah, there's a YouTube video. I feel like I can do this now because I could do it. I could watch it. I could learn and I could do it at the same time. So just it brings so many more elements to their understanding and their ability to feel like they can do it. If you're trying to convey complexity, man, it brings all of these elements to that. Anything you want to add to that, Paul, that we haven't really touched on before we jump into some of the like kind of best practice pieces?
That was absolutely perfect. The only thing I love saying is I've learned so much from YouTube as well that I now just call it the University of Tube. And
Oh
that's
yeah,
where that is where I went. I went to University of Tube.
I had a buddy who went and was learning about chiropractic work on YouTube, and he's like, "Hey, can I adjust your neck?" I was like, "No way! There's got to be a line to this stuff, right? I'm not going to Doctor YouTube." So, okay, so let's talk about best practices. I want to throw this out there as well. If this stuff really resonates with you, and this is something that you want to grow in, a resource that I used for this is an author. Her name's Vanessa Van Edwards. She actually wrote a book called Cues, and she is a self-described awkward person who got really interested in her 30s about why don't I feel like I'm connecting with people? Why don't I feel like I like anyone or why I don't have friends? And what she realized and learned is because she was not giving right cues. She wasn't understanding the cues that are going back and forth in a conversation. And so we're not going to spend a ton of time on these because I want to have plenty of time to talk through the examples we're going to go through. But I do want to talk through the cues that we're giving off when we are sending a video, right? Like I mentioned before, just because we sent the video doesn't mean we're giving off exactly what we wanted. If I send Paul a video and I'm like, hey, Kevin, or hey, Paul, I just wanted to let you know I'm really excited about talking to you today about Mom because I think it'd be really great. No, just because it's a video doesn't mean he's getting that. In fact, I'm sending him the opposite cues of I'm not feeling very excited about this. I don't want to be doing the video. So there's like a give and take with this stuff. We've got to make sure we're doing the right things. So first and foremost, let's talk about some of the cues, the different types of cues that we have. One are going to be visual. Our facial expressions, our gestures, our posture, the clothes that we have on, all of these things are visual clues that somebody is looking at us and taking in and processing right away. How do I feel about those things? Now, they're not universal, right? Somebody could look at Paul's plaid shirt and go, man, I love that plaid shirt. That red looks so good on him. That guy is glowing right now. And another person go like, man, I freaking hate plaid on me. So now Paul's got to work past that. You cannot predict that. But again, these are all things that people are taking in. Paul, I love your shirt, by the way.
Thank you.
Just put that out there. Vocal cues, right? Our tone of voice, the speed we speak with, the volume that we're using. We talked about the all caps. If I'm shouting in a video, that's going to be really aggressive, and that's going to be something that can make me a little bit uncomfortable. I think those two are much more common. We know that those things are at play. One of the things I really learned that is massively important is spatial. Is what is our proximity to the other person? Are we in their personal space? Are we out of their personal space? Are we touching? Now, you might be going, well, in a video, I'm not actually with the other person. Guess what? It is still very much in play. If I record a video and I'm sitting here talking to you like this, you're like, dude, why are you in? It immediately brings some anxiety up and makes you feel uncomfortable, right? Also, side note, if I'm sitting back here talking to you, you're like, why is this guy so far away? What is he nervous of? Like, what you
Or
make
what's
these
more important than me that he has to be all the way over there? Yeah.
exactly. And now I have to shout to get my voice, right? So I think this was a light bulb moment for me after doing lots and lots of videos was, oh my gosh, that's why our positioning to the camera is so important because there are different zones spatially when you are with somebody that feel acceptable, don't feel acceptable. You don't walk up to a brand new person and just start touching them in a lot of different ways, just like Paul said earlier, with the words that we're using, the relationship, the trust, the connection is what allows you to get deeper into these spaces. So I'm going to throw this up. This is something that Vanessa had in her book that I thought, man, that feels right to me. We talked about the stat earlier. Body language accounts for 60 to 80% of communication. This is based on studies. This is based on scientific research and things like that. This window, I like that it's a window and not an exact number, per the numbers we were talking about earlier, because I think it really does show the importance of the body language and those sort of things, but also it goes like it's not everything. There's a lot other pieces in place. So let's talk about some kind of body language cues. She calls these cues for competence. So I want to read them to you. First and foremost, your hands. Now, this is an interesting one, and this is one that I've had to learn a lot over time. I move my hands a lot. I do. I talk with my hands a great deal. And it can be overkill. I am on that side where it's like sometimes it's like, Kevin, just calm down. This is doing nothing, right? However, the hands are the window into your soul. This is a very fascinating thing. She talks about when you can't see somebody's hands, it immediately makes you more anxious because it's triggering your amygdala. Your amygdala is the part in your brain that is controlling your emotions, your memory, your decision making. And if somebody is hiding their hands, especially in person, if they're just tucked under the table the entire time, you kind of go like, what's going on? What are you hiding? Paul, I know we talked in sales a lot, how
Yeah.
palms are very vulnerable, right? For a lot of reasons. They're a pretty sensitive area. So they actually physically feel vulnerable, but also when you're like this, think about, like that feels like I can't really defend myself. It feels like I'm wide open from a tribal perspective. There's not a lot here. What is the posture we go to when we feel tough and protected? We close up, we fist, we close and hide our palms away. So she even talks about this. She's like, I start almost every greeting with quick wave. It doesn't have to be
Yes.
long, but it's an immediate thing of like, I'm not threatening. And of course, none of us are processing all of these things as we meet new people, but they are cues that our body is taking in, right? I'll throw this out there real quick. She talks about steeple hands, how this is one of the most powerful cues you can give somebody is the steeple hands. And I think it's interesting. It doesn't feel supernatural to me, but there's an openness to it. You're giving access to the palms, but there's also a power element to this. So it's showing competence, it's showing warmth, it's showing kind of all of this wrapped into one. Oh, Elon Musk apparently does. The steeple hands in excess. Yeah, he's conveying a lot of power all the time. So, just again, does that mean you need to sit on every video like this and do your videos? No, absolutely not. But it's a really interesting thing to be aware of. What are your hands doing? Paul, I feel like I don't feel like you're a big hands person. You're not like overly hands. You're actually pretty still physically in a lot of your videos. Is that right?
Yeah, and but I do make it, and because it's like I always feel like I'm too crazy or whatever, so I'm trying to always like, like this is a calm conversation, or like I want, but I you can look at all 15, 10,000, I don't know how many videos I've recorded. Every single one of them starts with me waving. And I've always just done that because it's just the best way to show, like, hey, I'm a real person and I'm
Hmm.
trying to connect with you. And it's so funny how, like, the smallest things are just so important. But I'm like, if even from a recipient standpoint, I like it works on me, you know? It's the same thing of like if you ever notice your own body language when someone says something that makes you feel uncomfortable, there's a really good chance that you, like, without even knowing it, crossed your legs or crossed your arms or tried to fold your finger, like hold your hands, like you're slowly closing up, and it's the way our body and mind are so connected.
Yeah. I was even reading a little bit. I don't know if any of you have seen this book. This is a brand new book. I promise I'm not here trying to sell books. I'm not getting credit for any of these. Mel Robbins has an amazing new book called The Let Them Theory. And I started reading it, and she actually wrote a book about the high five theory as well. How the best way to change your mood early in the morning is high five yourself in the mirror. There's got to be something to that as well. She didn't necessarily talk to it, but you're almost giving yourself permission to open up, be vulnerable. I don't know. I just kind of connecting those dots. So use your hands. Now, the one thing I want to touch on with all of these as we continue to talk through these is a lot of us are projecting that the two main things she talks about are warmth and competence. You can have where you immediately project competence in a heavy way. You can have where you project a lot of warmth in a way. Too much of one or the other can be alarming, can be disarming for the people we're talking to. Not enough of either of them can be disarming as well. She talks about that's why some of the smartest people in the world have extremely high competence, but their warmth is way down here. There's no balance to that. And that's why they can't convey their information as well. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about how to use these for yourself. Know where you fall on that spectrum, kind of think through it a little bit. This one's fascinating, and I won't spend tons of time on it because there's probably a lot of science that I don't fully understand. She talks about how the most important posture, the most important distance, is the distance between your earlobe and your shoulder, and how this directly correlates with the confidence or anxiety that we think we're pulling from somebody, right? Imagine if I was sitting here this whole webinar like this is not somebody that I would want to listen to or feel like they know what they're talking about. Now, the flip side again is if we try to stretch that out and be really tall. Now I look like pompous and I look uncomfortable and I'm like looking down my nose at you. That doesn't feel very good either. So what she talks about is having just a nice relaxed distance. You kind of want the max distance possible while you're relaxed. And what's nice about that is it keeps your shoulders down. It even makes your shoulders go back a little bit, which gives you this just nice, comfortable posture, and it conveys competence. It conveys confidence in what you are talking about. So again, just another thing, and I think potentially even more important on video than in person because we're not getting the context of anything else that's going on. We've got this tight frame for people, so this distance is a massive part of that. So keep it in mind. Eye contact. I think this is a great one to talk about, especially with video. Paul and Steve are both nodding as we've talked to thousands and thousands of people over the years. Uh, One, eye contact is massively important because we have to show that we're in the conversation, we're invested, we're in this. That doesn't mean we sit the whole conversation like this and stare into their eyes. Could you imagine how uncomfortable you'd be if somebody did that if you were sitting at a coffee shop with them and they're just staring at you? You'd be like, dude, what is going on with this person? Like, this is really uncomfortable. So she talks about how the most optimum time to get somebody to believe what you're doing is to look at them at the end of a poignant sentence. So look around. You can even find your thoughts if you're a visual person, but this is why it's so important to listen. Then that person goes, "Oh wow, that feels really important because they're like on me, right?" So don't stare, She said the optimum number is 60 to 70% of a conversation is an ideal amount to have eye contact, right? So release that you've got to be here, there. It's okay to grab a lot of things, pick up stuff around you, come back. For video, pick up notes off your computer. What are the things I want to talk about? Here's my bullet points, come back. And then that last one, I think, is something that we've had to coach over and over and over again to be reminded of. We're not talking with somebody directly, so where do we make eye contact? The camera. That camera lens is your person's eyes. Because if right now you guys can see, if I'm sitting here staring at my screen, this doesn't really feel like I'm talking to you at all, right? So, I'm looking at some of the chats right now and just, oh yeah, like it doesn't feel like I'm connected with you at all. When I come up to the camera lens, now you as the recipient feel like I'm talking directly to you. I can make eye contact and feel that. Paul, how do you talk about this a lot with the teams that you're working with? Obviously, it's a big topic. I know you've gone over it 1,000 times, but
Yeah,
what have you
and
found to be impactful?
well, because there's this balance. There's always a balance, right? I mean, in a perfect world, we would love to be the memory king and queen of like, I know everything. I don't need to read. I don't need to look at notes. But I think what Kevin was saying was so beautiful because you don't need to be crazy and just stare at it, but you also don't want to be looking at it the whole time. And what I've always correlated it to is when you're looking at your computer and trying to talk to someone, if they are receiving that the same way you would receive when you're having a conversation with someone in person when they're looking at their phone, when they're like checking their time and you're like, wait, are you paying attention to me? Is something more important? And so that's just it's you don't have to be crazy about it, but that's why you always want to go back to the eye contact on the camera when you can to show the importance that the recipient is.
Yeah, I love that phone one too. That's a big one that I am challenged with, right? I'm out on a date with my wife and I'm like checking my phone for no reason. There's nothing I'm actually looking for, but just the power of that makes that person immediately feel like they're not as important. Like there's something else kind of competing for their time. Let's talk about smile a little bit. This is one I have talked about very simply for a lot of years. Smile to intro your videos, smile to end your videos. Uh, why do you think that's so important, Paul, when you think about when you're coaching people?
Yeah, so actually, I even have some additional thoughts on this because I would say for the majority of the people, yes, smile, you know, but there are some people that their personality is never smile. And so then I say like be yourself. The number one thing is always be authentic and be consistent. So when someone meets you on video, that's how you're going to be in person when you actually get that opportunity, right? But for the majority of us, smiling is so important just because they get to when someone is smiling or when you see a kid smile, you instantly feel that. There's an emotion that is drawn from that. And so when we start our videos or we have our videos where we're smiling, we can actually create emotion even though it's through a means of technology. And that's why it's so important.
Yeah, think about if you're online and you're scrolling through videos and you see a video of somebody laughing really hard. Immediately you start smiling. And if you watch enough, you've seen those videos of like laugh chains where one person starts laughing and the next person they are infectious. Laughing and
Yes.
smiling is infectious. So bring that to people. If you leave them with a smile, holy cow, that's a win, right? That means they feel good. There's actually a study, Dr. Barbara Wild did a study on this where they took pictures of people, and this is to your point exactly, Paul. They took pictures of people. Some were genuinely really smiling because they made them think of something that they love. And other people, they just said, okay, smile, and took a picture. So some of them are genuine, real smiles from within, and some are just like, I'm smiling for a picture. They showed those to people and then had recipients take a mood test after they looked at those pictures. The people that saw the genuine smiles actually had a mood change. The people that saw the fake smiles didn't change at all.
Yep.
We can tell. People are perceptive. They can understand these things. So if it's not feeling natural, don't just put on the fake smile, right? I mean, we can talk about smizing and smiling with your eyes. Like there's so many things that you just don't fake unless you're genuinely enjoying that. So to your point, use that. This was something that I learned as I was researching. Words convey the information, but the nonverbal signals actually convey the emotion and intent and the trustworthiness. To Paul's point earlier, if we don't understand the intent, if we're not feeling the emotion, we're not building the trust that builds the connection, that builds
Yep.
the deeper relationship, that builds the buying opportunities, that really builds those business connections that we need. So just
Absolutely.
keep that in mind with the nonverbal stuff. This one's fascinating, and I'm going to do a little exercise with you guys. It's like 4 seconds long, so it won't take long. Your brain is 12.5% or times more likely to believe gestures over words. So think about this. Just do this sitting there right now. I want you to hold up 3 fingers, but I want you to say the number 5. Paul, you actually did pretty good at this when I tested you on it. It's something that I think you'll feel it takes a little while to think, right? Like, oh, 5. And I can get there, but it takes a second. One of the things she talked about is she said liars, when people are lying, they automatically are going to be doing less gestures because they're having to focus really hard on the non-truth that they're saying. So use this. Know that your gestures, your hands, all those things are good to use when they're genuine. So just keep that in mind as we're kind of going through this. Vocal cues. Number 1, say it, don't ask it. I mean, you've probably heard this before, but have you ever heard somebody talk in upspeak where it feels like every sentence that they're finishing with kind of ends in a question? It immediately makes you feel like they really probably don't know what they're talking about, right? There's a lot, it feels like they're questioning themselves. It immediately signals to people they don't know what they're doing. This person does not have competence. They did studies with sales teams, and they said the number one place that most salespeople will use upspeak is when they are giving the dollar amount to close the sale. So they've had this whole conversation. So all of this is going to only be about $5,000. Immediately it goes like, is it really $5,000? And are you just making this up? Like, is this negotiable? Just, we don't need to use it except for in very specific moments. They've also done studies with doctors and surgeons that ended with upspeak got the least trustworthy ratings from people because they would say their name in upspeak. And it makes you feel like, do you know who you are? So this is just a really good one. Practice it. But it doesn't give enough warmth and confidence and competence. Make sure, especially with your name, that you're finishing it on the downspeak. My name is Kevin Andrews. Not, my name is Kevin Andrews. Is it? Really? Is that really who you are? Right?
Sure.
So it gives off a lot of cues, and it's just simple things to just kind of be aware of. I'm going to go through these ones pretty quick because I know you guys are all anxious to get to the examples. But pace, volume, pauses are 3 really, really powerful aspects of the tone and the vocal cues that we are giving off to people. Too fast, too slow. If I'm speaking really, really loud, it just feels awkward. Like, why am I talking like this to you guys right now? It just makes you uncomfortable. What are the ones, do you use any of these? Are you strategic with any of these, Paul, as far as your vocal cues?
I learn, this is where technology can really serve us well. So one of the things, I'm actually a very fast speaker and I process things super quickly. And my life is, it can't be fast enough. Okay. But what I learned is not everyone is like that. And so then the beauty of technology, like what we have in BombBomb, is when someone can watch the video, they can put it on 2 speed. Or just like how we watch YouTube channels, we could put it, or Audible, we put it at 1.5. So I actually try to slow down so then that can get the widest audience. So anyone could fast forward my videos and listen to it on the way that they digest information. And I love that. Even videos from our CEO, he has videos. I always put the emoji 2 speed because I'm like, that's my speed right there. So that to me is what's important. And then always just making sure that your tone with the volume, everything, what you said, Kevin, it's vital. Being yourself. Just that's the
Sure.
big thing is a lot of these will come naturally if you just try to be yourself. Don't
Mhm.
try to be some TikTok influencer. Don't try to be some news reporter or anything. Just have a normal conversation like you would, but just do it on a video.
And what's fun about these is as you find your normal confident radiate, like your just go-to tone that you use on a regular basis, you can start to put things in like pauses that grab a lot of attention and people all of a sudden go, you've got them kind of hanging on. So again, don't overthink these things. The more natural, the more yourself you can be, the better.
Yep.
Just we need to be aware that how we are can also do this. So Paul, that's a great example. I've knowing you when you first started at BombBomb, super energetic,
Oh
super
yeah.
fast. You were flying, you were going. Paul's got that New York style, like just like boom. I'm confident. I'm bringing it. And it is really interesting sitting here listening to you. You've definitely learned kind of like a calmer, slower pace that just exudes confidence to me personally. But that's funny. I've never really registered kind of
Yeah.
noticing that difference knowing you as long as I have. So Yeah, know where you fall. You don't need to be moving all of these levers all of the time. I have a tendency to talk quicker, so I've had to work on slowing down, being a little bit more patient there. If you're somebody that throws in a lot of filler words, ums, uhs, likes, pauses can be a wonderful, powerful tool for you. If you feel like your brain isn't keeping up with your mouth, take a second, take a quick breath, allow it to catch up. And it's amazing how much you go, oh, like that oxygen in your brain just helps. All right, so let's jump over to these examples. So we're going to talk a lot about our screen recorder today because it's one of the amazing tools that helps with the complexity. More than just our performance and the way that we are on video, guess what? We've got some tools that will help with this a ton. So if you've used the screen recorder, amazing. You're going to learn some new techniques and some new tactics to use this. If you haven't and don't even know we have this, we do. We've got an amazing screen recorder that you can see here allows for you to still be on the screen, but it also allows you to show your desktop. You can pick a window, you can just choose your monitor, your screen. You can pick what you want to convey. And it just really allows the people with the different learning styles to pick up and understand so much more information. So let's kind of jump into this a little bit. The first complexity that we want to talk about here is maybe you have a complex product. Maybe you have a product that feels confusing. It's hard to explain. It's really, really powerful, but how do I convey that sort of information, right? We don't want to leave people trying to figure that out. If we send an email introducing ourselves from a sales perspective and somebody goes, well, now I feel like I have to go Google to understand what they even do, that's going to be a missed opportunity. We don't want to give people homework. This example that I'll play for you is a great example because it's actually from StoryBrand, if any of you are familiar with that. StoryBrand is kind of a complex idea. It's more of a style of selling. It's a way of marketing and using your website to convey certain information. That can be hard to outline in a couple of paragraphs. And who wants to read a couple of paragraphs anyways, right? So I'm going to play this just so you can see how he's showing visually, how he's talking through, how he's guiding somebody through building a deeper understanding as to what their product is.
April, Jake Owsley with StoryBrand here. Hope you're so well. Super fun to chat with you very briefly. I know you had a ton of questions about your website and then specifically how you can use StoryBrand to help you clarify your message. I want to walk you through a little presentation that I think will be helpful for you. To start, I want to point you to a very vague message. We see a lot of websites that start with this, something that's pretty unclear, pretty vague. It's very hard to uncover what it is that they do. You have to burn a lot of calories to figure out what this brand is actually offering. Let's walk through 5 things that your website should include. The very first thing is a header.
Okay, so we won't watch this whole, couple minute video, but I think it's so powerful for me as a visual person to see an example of exactly what he's trying to describe. Because I think we know that. We've been to those websites where it's like, I don't even know what you do. But when he's trying to describe it, I don't want to have to be thinking and he's giving me that example that I need to see right there. So he's naming the problem, he's giving me a visual example of that, and then boom, now he's going to start giving me examples of solutions for this, of better ways to do this. It's allowing me to visually see this, audibly hear it. He's walking me through this journey together. And because I can see these things, it allows me to feel like I get it on a much deeper level here. Paul, have you had teams that you've worked with or people like that have used the screen recorder a lot because of the complexity of their product specifically?
Oh yeah. And the thing to be thinking about is you need to look at all this through the lens of your customer. You may fully understand something. You may think something is super easy to understand, but you pay attention to the questions that you get asked. They will really expose where there's like some misunderstanding or ambiguity. And so that's where like the screen recorder can really provide that insight. And also, it's like you can also send me the thing and I could be like, I have no idea what to do with this. And if it's you walking me through what I need to do with this, that's huge. And so we have a lot of people in the mortgage industry that use our screen recorder for like a rate comparison. The big thing is I'm coming at it from like, hey, I could afford this much for my mortgage. And they're coming at it, well, with the rates being this and your house costing this, here's where this house that you really love is actually going to fall into. And if we lock in now or if we do this with this rate, And so I actually recently purchased a home, and getting that comparison of what my two worlds are going to look like really helped me not only understand, but set me up for success. And so think about all the times if you're getting multiple questions on a document back and forth, they're like, so wait, where do I do this? What should I do? Pay attention to those questions because you can save not only yourself a lot of time, but your clients a lot of time by just sending them the document, right? Let them do it, but then a quick walkthrough of how they should be looking at that document and what they should be doing with that document.
Paul, it's like I paid you to lead us into our next idea. Because the next one we're talking about is kind of complexity and information. I think you talked about it so much when we're talking about contracts, when we're talking about financial statements and things like that. I know for me, there is so much about a mortgage and about all of this stuff that feels very confusing and overwhelming, right? And I've actually bought a home and refied and gone through the process for a little while. I even have my real estate license for a handful of years, and it's still confusing to me.
Yes.
So imagine what the client is feeling. No matter what industry you're in, whether you're selling a product and they have to sign a contract. Great. There might be confusing elements of this. Or one of the things I love about using our screen recorder for complexity is being preemptive with the questions I know you're going to have. I'll play this example for you. It's a great one from kind of a mortgage perspective, but this is not the first contract you've probably ever sent. You know the main questions you're going to get back. How wonderful would it be to save you time if you answered those up front? And how great does that look from a client perspective to go, wow, how did he know I was going to be curious about that? This guy knows what he's doing. It's showing the competence, or this woman, they know exactly what they're doing. So I'll play you this example so you can see kind of how he walks through a document and just really kind of navigates that to be preemptive with those questions so that they can understand more clearly.
Hey, Lulu, Tom Griffith, here you go. I wanted to show you something for your borrower here so that you can communicate with them. First of all, this is a whole tone. So, and I know that's kind of how this started, where I'm Holt's preferred lender. Now you guys are back to a whole tone. So big difference in this one is there's a $10,000 incentive, at least according to the listing that you sent me on Redfin. So I've listed that here, seller prepaid or the promo. Couple of things for you to know. Here's total cash required, and sorry for the scrolling, and it'll make you sick here, but I got to get down there. I'll make this wider for you too. I built taxes and
Okay, he's kind of walking through that. Paul, I don't know if you've even seen that example before. Tom's a guy that I've met a couple times. Really, I mean, that you're seeing exactly who he is, which is a beauty of this. But does anything stand out to you in that example that you were just watching there, Paul?
I actually haven't seen that example before. And what I really like is he's coming at it from like the relationship standpoint. And that's something that people like we don't even think about when we're using the screen recorder. We think like we are not like coming off as the teacher or like they have to do this homework assignment or whatever. You have relationship with these individuals and you could harp on that. Like he said, he's like, sorry, this is going to give you like a headache, but we have to talk about these points. This is the most important thing. Like he's looking out for his client. And that's all the things that I got just from having a video with this document.
Yeah,
If he didn't have that, I would just be like, this is very overwhelming.
Yeah, Pam, I think, just said that too. She's like, I like the combination of the video and being able to see the document and those sort of things. I think what's cool about that too is psychologically, the information that we're processing from looking at the document, because we're hearing him talk about it, he's the expert. So we're going
Yes.
to give that benefit back to that person because we see him. He's part of this. I also love in this situation too, this is actually a video he's sending to his agent that's representing the clients. He's making his agent look really good right now because he's giving them a really good understanding of what they're getting into, how to walk this through with their clients. Also, man, I know I'm jumping a little bit, but with a screen record, you're also giving a really amazing piece that can be shared to clients and shared from person to person. I mean, think about how many times you've conveyed info or put yourself in the client perspective, right? I just had this the other day. We had somebody that needs to do some work on our house. He came over, I met with him, talked with him. Now I have to go convey that information to my wife. I'd like to think I'm a solid communicator. I know there's stuff I missed. Like, I just have no doubt in my mind. Or instantly, she's like, oh, well, did you ask him this? And I'm like, oh, crap. No, I forgot to, Like, anybody that's married has had that experience to some degree with whatever. now we've got something we can just share and say like, oh, here, you watch it and you'll pick up different things than I picked up or that I missed. So these are just different ways that conveying this with the screen record really, really helps. I do want to touch on, there was somebody, I don't remember exactly who it was. I think it was Donna that was asking about, with this, do I need Zoom anymore? Do I not need Zoom anymore? Great question. I'm so glad you brought that up. And ultimately, yes, they do things we don't, we do things they don't, right? So you can use them hand in hand. We use both of them here at BombBomb. The easiest way to think about it is synchronous versus asynchronous. So Zoom is going to be a synchronous way of we all have to be together in the meeting to convey the information, share a screen, do that. What BombBomb allows you to do with the screen recorder is asynchronous. I can record it when I want. You can watch it when you want. So there's going to be times you're going to use both, need both, because sometimes you need the back and forth. Other times I need to just convey the information and give it to you to kind of process and work through. So that's, I think, the easiest way that I've used it. However, somebody mentioned in chat way earlier, how do I record multiple people at once? Great way to use two tools and use them hand in hand. We've done it before where we've jumped on a Zoom as a team, recorded a video, then we upload that video into BombBomb and send it out through BombBomb so that they can watch it whenever they want to. So there's some neat ways you can use those, but yeah, I'd recommend you're going to probably want a virtual conferencing tool like Zoom or Google Meet or whatever you use. Is it Teams? I don't Microsoft Teams? I don't know. I don't use it
People
very
use
much.
Microsoft Teams.
So whatever you use it, but some different ways. All right, let's talk about number 3 here. A complex process. If you are sitting there in your business right now going, I have people that get stuck in certain processes a lot. I need them to do X, Y, and Z, and they don't get to that point. I need them to go log in. I need them to go into a portal. I need them to go X, Y, and Z, but they're not following through with that. This is a piece in my sales process where we're having friction. This is a great way to use this tool. Now, the example I've got here is actually a BombBomb example where we're talking about a piece of our product that some people were having confusion on. So this is a video that an employee of ours actually used because she was getting this question a lot. How do I do this step? But I think you can think about this in a lot of different ways of, I need people to go into my website to sign in to do X. Great. Do they know where that is? Record a quick video showing them that. The easier you make this, the more comfortable you make this for your clients, the more likely they are to follow through and actually get to the point that you need to get to. So here's just kind of a quick example of how one of our employees.
How do I get these events into my automated emails? Well, that's what this copy function is. So whatever system you're plugging into, in this instance, in this example, it's Total Expert. I'll click this copy for Total Expert. You can see this notification that it's copied to my clipboard. And then when I go into the editor.
So now she jumps into the other system and she's walking them through the steps, right? It seems maybe a little elementary, I guess, when you're watching it. You would be shocked about how many people have trouble with this piece. And if they don't understand this piece, we can't do a whole lot. Great. Let's make it easy. We want it to feel simple. I think sometimes text makes things feel more complicated than it actually is. When you show them, you go, oh, that's easy. I can walk through those pieces. Paul, you and I were talking when we were kind of prepping for this. Oh yeah, I've got videos of how people can add a call to action to their video. And it's just me walking through how I add the little call to action button to BombBomb's video, or how I add a video banner to my video. I have these as frequently asked question videos that I can just send out to people as people get confused on them. Are there any that you found that you use more than others as these kind of friction points?
I mean, you're saying it perfectly. And just to connect the thought that you had before to this right here is whenever you're sending information to someone, like even if you get it over to them over the phone and they fully understand, there's always probably someone else that needs to understand. And so you can save so much time. Like Kevin was saying, he would understand something and then he would have to relay it to his wife and they would completely like, I didn't ask that question, right? My wife always has more questions than I have answers. And so what's great about this is anytime you walk the one person through it, they can then share that video with whoever. And so this is so important that we use this when communicating complex steps because it not only will set the one person up for success, it will save you and others more and more time. And so that's how you can really use this towards your advantage. And the one thing that I will just add to this is you will never get a complaint for sending too many videos. You will never get someone upset for saying, hey, you over explain this. Once they get it, they will stop watching the video, but they will never complain that you sent them all these extra steps and extra walkthroughs. What you will get if you don't do stuff like this is multiple phone calls, multiple emails of you having to make sure everyone's on the same page, clearing up the confusion. And so you can really save yourself a lot of time by just doing something like this up front.
Such a good point. I mean, Steve, you've got over 20,000 videos. I've got over 10,000 videos. Paul, you're somewhere in those ranges too. Like, I don't think I've ever had somebody that's responding on, how dare you send me a video?
Yeah.
What do you think? Like, it's never happened. People love it. Let's give them too
How do I
much.
get
So, all right, last one here that I want to talk about is actually one that's not a screen record. And I thought it was good to talk about this because we talked about kind of our performance on video pieces earlier of, man, complex emotions. There's a lot of complex situations that happen in a buying process or in a customer process that can be hard to navigate through. When somebody's got big emotions, when they're upset about something, when you've got bad news that you have to convey. I mean, the amount of times we've talked with people who are like, yeah, I had to tell my clients the deal was done. It wasn't going to happen again. And if I just send that in a text message or in text email, it feels really cold. It doesn't feel empathetic. This is a great example of one of our older employees who has moved on to other companies now, but we dropped the ball a little bit with this certain client and they were not happy about it. They were upset about that. And when you're in those moments, you've got two options. One, we ignore it, we blame them. Oh, well, they didn't do what we told them to do. Or you follow up and say, I am so sorry about that. How do we fix this? How do we move forward? And how do we make this client from really unhappy wanting to cancel to a champion, to somebody that's going to fight for BombBomb because we care? So here's a great example of how she approached that. Oh, I went too far. I'll get there.
how do I get
Oh
these?
man, now I'm backwards. Here we go.
Hey, Megan, we do hear you. We hear you. We take it very seriously that you are in such a place of frustration and disillusionment with us. Wherever we drop the ball, we want to pick that up and fix it. And so I'm here to, it could have been, maybe I dropped the ball and failed you as an onboarding trainer. I've got Erin here. I've included her in this.
So she talks through steps of how do we move forward from here. But I think what I love about this video from Angie was one of the more empathetic people I've ever met. She cared deeply about our clients and our customers. And you feel that, you get that of like, I'm so sorry that we let you down in that way. I was actually working with a client of ours, Michael Thorne. He's a realtor. And he talked about the most important video I ever sent was at like 3 o'clock in the morning. I had a client who had a deal fall. They had 4 deals fall through on their home that they were trying to sell. And he was like, I just couldn't sleep. And so I got up and sent him a video. I was like, guys, I'm so sorry this is happening again. It's killing me that this is the experience you guys are having. And I know we're going to talk tomorrow about this, but I just need you to know like how much you mean to me, how much this process means to me. I really don't think we're making the wrong steps. And we're just having some crummy circumstantial things happen. And he's like, I literally sent that client, and by the next morning, our client saw it. We had a great meeting because they had already processed through the things that I had conveyed to them. He's like, they ended up buying, I think, 4 or 5 homes from me because I built that connection, because I let them know and use video in this part. So it's just an amazing opportunity to kind of convey that information. I'm going to jump to the takeaways here. I know we've got a couple of minutes left, and we'll stick around. If you've got Q&As, throw it in Q&A right now. I know Steve and Taylor have been just crushing it, so there's not a lot sitting in there, but throw it in chat, throw it in Q&A. We will stick around and answer some of those questions. But here's the things I want you to leave this last hour with moving forward. I've seen a lot of people go, oh my gosh, I've got so many ideas of how to use the screen recorder and move on. Great. I love that. Take that, run with it, go record your videos. But I want you to understand why. One, the words are only a portion of what we're actually conveying. Keep that in mind. No matter if it's screen record or not, make sure that we're using the elements from video to convey that information. Complexity can be overcome. I think sometimes it can feel like, how do we get through this? How do we fix this? I don't know what to do. Guess what? Video can be an amazing tool. There's a lot of ways that we can get through these difficult things by connecting, by being human, by really building that trust and using that empathy. And then just remember, video provides those extra elements of communication. The way that it speaks to the way that the recipients want to learn. People want to see videos. We want to learn through that. We want to process. I've got stats all day long on video consumption right now. It's insane on the internet. But just know that not only does it help with the complexity, it's also how people want to learn. I saw some people ask about, like, do we have more resources for this? We do. And I know Steve and Taylor have been sharing some links and things like that. But if you're wanting to learn more about the screen recorder, or if you're wanting to dive in more about my on-camera presence and these pieces, we have courses in BombBomb Studios, which is our kind of on-demand learning center that you can go to. It's training.bombbomb.com. Go type that in. If you've never been before, you will have to create a quick login and password. It's different. It's separate from your BombBomb account. So know that you don't have to use the same content. They are separate learning. They're separate logins. But there's lots of courses here where you can go learn lots of stuff. So these are two of the ones that we've been talking a lot about today. If you want to go on, the screen recorder course is like 13 minutes long. The acting one's a little bit longer. It's deeper. So you can choose kind of what you want to learn in. But training.bombbomb.com is a great resource. You can go learn a whole bunch of content and look deeper into those. If you're new, if you don't have BombBomb, if you somehow fell into this webinar and don't even know why you're here, but you're curious, we've gotten your curiosity going, great. We've got a couple QR codes. Pull out your phone right now and you can pick, what do you need? How do you like to process this? If you're somebody that goes, you know what, I want to just get in and play a little bit. That trial one on the right, great one for you. You can sign up for a free 14-day trial of BombBomb. No credit card, nothing required. You hop in, play around with it. Start recording videos. Use the screen record. Just have a good time. If you're somebody that's like, I need somebody to walk me through this, great. Our demo one is a great opportunity. We've got some great people here that can kind of talk you through that, figure out what are your needs, what are the pieces of the system that will help you the most. Again, there's no right or wrong. It's just, how do you like to process? How do you like to learn? And in fact, you can get a trial and also get a demo at the same time. You can do both. We can have the best of both worlds. But use those as some resources for you next as we're kind of moving forward there. So for those of you that have to jump, I know we're top of the hour. Thank you for being here. We always love having you guys here, and I've seen some familiar names that are here every single month. We love having you here. We love leaning into this. You know that our heart is all about building that deeper connection, bringing humans back together using technology. And that's what we're trying to do with these, is bringing you guys together as a community and hopefully giving you some more information. So it doesn't look like we have a whole lot of QAs that are sitting out there. Apparently, when you bring just like the two best employees that have ever existed in Taylor and Steve, and Paul, of course, Paul, onto the mix, we answer all the questions for you. We get them all answered. But hopefully this gave you some new ideas, some new energy, some new excitement around something else, a new way that you can kind of use video. Paul, if you're thinking about, man, I want to leave people with one thing. Ignore Kevin's takeaways, ignore the demo thing. You're thinking about your use of video, how it's been impactful for you. What's kind of the one thing you would drop on people right now?
Yeah, I mean, I said it, I think about 3 times on this, is be yourself. Do not try to be anyone else. We showed you a lot of tips and techniques on how to make your videos more effective. The most effective thing is being yourself, because you are your #1 asset. And when you show that with your videos, that's going to help you win. And so that's always what I like to harp on.
I love that. And what a great lesson. And I just saw this with a QA as well in a chat that kind of goes hand in hand with that. How is BombBomb considering AI? How are we using AI? That is obviously a very deep, complex thing. There are things in the works. I promise you, we are not just ignoring that AI is a really, really important element. It's complex to evaluate how do we want to use AI with that we still believe the human, that you are the most important element of the video. And that can't be replicated in certain ways, right? So we are navigating that a lot. I promise you there's going to be some great things down the line that are going to help you from an AI perspective. That being said, we also don't want to erase you. We don't want to make you a bot, because you're not a bot. You are an incredibly complex human being that cannot be turned into a bot in our eyes. So we are evaluating that. I promise, Mike, we're not ignoring that conversation, and there's going to be some cool stuff coming. But we're working through that. So thanks for keeping to bring that up. We will definitely keep you all in the loop as we navigate through those sort of things. Steve, thank you. Support@bombbomb.com. If you need help Do not sit and struggle by yourself. Guess what? We were talking about screen record walkthrough videos. If you go to support.bombbomb.com, which is our knowledge base, there are hundreds of walkthrough videos on how you can solve all sorts of different things. So please find the solution, reach out to us, let us help you solve that. Don't struggle in silence. That is not what we want for you in the slightest. If you're running into any issue, any confusion, any technical, whatever it might be, we're always here for you. That being said, Paul, thank you. I mean, you bring so much expertise, you bring so much knowledge, you bring a joy and excitement and a passion to this conversation that just absolutely can't be replicated. I appreciate you so much, and I love spending time with you and hanging out with you. Thank you for being here.
Good to see everyone. Hope you all have a great day.
All right, everybody, enjoy your February. If you are a team admin, we do have another webinar next week. Keep your eyes open for that, all about managing, building excitement, building adoption within your team. You can find that on bombbomb.com/webinars. If you're not a team admin, guess what? We'll be back here, same time, same place next month. We appreciate you all. We care about you all. Have an amazing February. Stay warm, stay safe. We'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.